Welcome back, guys. So, just like I promised, I've watched the entire episode of Joe Rogan with Tim Kennedy, and what he did there in that show, putting some sense into the Joe Rogan head, was brilliant. And I think it's a very good video to watch. Now, the video is about 2 hours long almost. And what I did is I watched it all and mushed it up into the relevant parts that I think will be interesting to my viewers. And I'm going to leave it here for you so you can enjoy them. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Very, very brilliant, interesting podcast.
And it is so, this tinderbox that is that region with the West Bank, with the Golan Heights in the north, with Hezbollah, which is being supported by Iran. They're all positioned on the border, with Iraq allowing people from Afghanistan, the Taliban, to move through. Taliban being funded by us. $40 million right now is what we're continually giving them, the Taliban.
Why do we do that?
I don't know.
It's a good answer. I don't know. Why?
What's the cynical side of you?
We want to recognize them as a legitimate government, and we are paying for them to start a democratic process of like that. That is I think would be the tagline of what we want them to do.
There's no way. There's no way. I mean, with all due respect to Tim Kennedy, there's no way. If that is really an official statement of why is the U.S. funneling money to the Taliban, like millions of dollars, then that's just cow poop crazy. It's like, to think that you're going to send money to radical religious people that hate democracy, that hate everything about you, that keep saying they want to kill you and burn down and death to America and death to Israel. And by sending them money, you think you're going to help them change their democracy? There's no way. I don't think, though, if someone knows the real reason why America is sending the Taliban money, tell me, because there must be something else, maybe under the radar, maybe something regarding the Russians, I don't know what, trying to get them to come to the American side, so in case something happens with Russia, they're your allies, because, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Could be other reasons, but not that reason, because that is just that is just cow poop crazy to think that they will change. You're just keeping them alive. By sending them money, you're keeping them in power. You're not changing their mind. You're just helping them keep progressing the idea, which in the end they want to destroy you while they're oppressing their own people.
What it is actually doing is the same thing that happens when we release $6 billion to Iran in exchange for hostages. They then take that $6 billion. No, they're not using that exact money to fund terrorism with Hezbollah or Hamas, but I have one bank account that has an additional $6 billion in it. And now I'm able to spend $6 billion over here to finance other things that are going to destabilize the nation that I have sworn to eradicate, Israel and America. So like, cool. I'll happily give some more money to, they've been planning this for 4 years. The Quds, like the Iranian special operations guys, training and preparing Hamas, advising on how to execute this. How do they get the intelligence to know what direction they need to fly with their paragliders, which areas, which you don't think they had scouts in all the kibbutzes around Gaza to identify which houses they're going to be targeting? How did they find all that stuff out?
This was actually a textbook invasion plan of Hezbollah, by the way. The IDF was very aware of it because Hezbollah was planning on doing that. They were waiting for the chance to do that, and they were way more capable and dangerous. Israel just knew that Hamas was thinking about it, because when I was in the service, we already heard about this kind of drawer plan that Hamas is kind of talking about. No one took them serious. No one thought that they can really pull it off, not in that scale. Israel was mostly afraid of a tunnel that will go and pop up in one of these, kibbutzim around, and then they will go and just take over one kibbutz. That was like, the nightmarish scenario, and they'll kidnap like 20 to 30 men and women and slaughter, and then, Israel's come take them, and no one thought in the scale of like, 3,000 terrorists, and then, several thousand civilians coming through the fence like nothing is tomorrow, which is a crazy story. How did that happen? And how, one Apache and a few tanks could have completely stopped that invasion. But it didn't. That's another story for another time.
The people that Israel was allowing out of Gaza to work as agricultural workers, they were going into these areas, into these kibbutzes, into these houses, into these villages, doing recons for Hamas. So then when Hamas launched their attack on October 7th, they'd been funded. There's this amazing book called The New Rules of War. And The New Rules of War lines out all of the ways that America is not prepared to fight a war. by non-state actors, by corporations, by cartels, by violent extremist organizations using proxy methods. So like we are at war with Iran, period. They are funding every single group that just attacked our American base in Syria, that attacked our American base in Iraq, that attacked and killed a bunch of Americans in Israel. That was funded by Iran and trained by Iran.
And yet there's pro-Iranian in the government.
But we don't have
of
the
US.
appetite to try and fight the war that they're fighting because they're doing it in just such a, we want that World War II, like we want Patton standing on top of a tank, coming across, being like, there's Rommel, go and get him. Like that war is never going to happen again. And we are just not ready to fight this new type of war under these new rules of war, which is fighting non-state actors, fighting proxy wars, fighting corporations funded by governments, fighting cartels that are getting subsidized by governments, all to destabilize the greatest nation to ever exist in the history of mankind, us.
I think part of what we see today as, the modern warfare, that's non-conventional warfare, is when enemies start realizing that there's other enemies just way too strong. We can't defeat them. Then they start trying every possible way to hurt that enemy for the long run, for the short run. And when you're a bad person, when you are a very immoral nation or leadership, what you do is you're going to use the weakness, what you perceive as the weakness of the enemy. Many times they perceive the weakness of the enemy is exactly what we perceive as their weakness. They say that you guys are weak because you're humanitarian, because you care about people. We care only about military success or money, it doesn't matter what. So we say we're going to exploit that about you. So we're going to start, sending unarmed people to fight you. We're going to make you come and try to fight us, and we're going to hide behind these unarmed people. And then once you start trying to take us down, you're going to demoralize your own nation. You're going to lose your credibility worldwide. You're going to start, having people inside your country fighting with each other. Is that justified or not justified? What kind of war is this? And then we will use that even more by funneling money to your universities, to your education system, to your political system, and create more fighting inside your country. On top of that, promote some stuff like woke ideology and all kind of stuff that will just rob the morality out of young people and make their own main source of education, TikTok and I don't know what. There's a whole battlefront that is going to take down the US by the enemies who cannot take down the US if they go confrontation, army to army. They can't. So they say, well, only way we can take them is in the future by demoralizing, destroying their culture, and then robbing their masculinity also, and just confusing them and just making them completely lost so they can't really fight a war. And that's what's happening today. It's not that easy to fight wars anymore when you come from the West, because you don't look at the enemy as an enemy anymore. And you start making excuses for the enemy where they're not making excuses for themselves, and that makes it very, very difficult.
You were saying that you think we're more vulnerable now than we've ever been before, and you're legitimately worried that the United States might fall.
I am more worried now because of the lack of preparedness of the individual. The flying back from Israel, every one of those people in the kibbutzes all around Gaza, and we're up and down them, like they're no fat on their faces, like striations on their shoulders. Like these are just cops or now reserve recently activated people. Going in Tel Aviv, I'm not joking. The entire time I was there, I saw two fat people the whole entire time. And I was like, I had to, I was compelled. I was like, hey, are you guys low? And they turn around and they're both American.
Of course.
Both instances of like the only fat
Yeah.
people. And then I take a flight from Tel Aviv directly into New York. I land in New York and I'm heading towards immigration and passport control. And I'm just like inundated with the like overweight, dangerously obese Americans. And I went, the stark contrast of a place that has been trying to fight for their existence since May of 1948, when every single neighboring country invaded them and tried to kill them, to like the 6-Day War, to then Yom Kippur War, and then the first Intifada, to the second Intifada, and now what just happened on October 7th, where they're just like under the stress of being capable and individually responsible for their safety. Clearly they failed on October 7th.
I wanna correct you a little bit. Yes, Israelis are more fit in general, than the average American. And everyone that comes from Europe or Israel to America is always shocked by how many obese people are there in the street, like literally everywhere. Something that we're not used to seeing in Europe or in Israel. But the reason for that in Israel is not because we're all kind of stressed all the time because of the war, and we're not running away. We're not cavemen who are running away from saber-tooths and chimpanzees are coming and trying to kill us, and that's why we're not getting fat. We're not storing fat enough because it's always burning it on surviving. That's not true. It's and to some extent, yes, everybody goes to the military, and there's maybe a little bit more kind of education towards being fit because it's important, but it's just more healthier food. Like Israelis literally have much more family oriented kind of dinners. People eat more inside than outside, and the only place that people eat more outside than inside is probably Tel Aviv. But over there, it's a very tofu vegan, free kind of community, and everybody's running shirtless on the beaches. So there's much more awareness there for health and for eating healthy food. But in general, that's not the reason why we're just skinny. It's just because there's better food culture in Israel than in the US. When I go to the US, I gain weight.
To then coming into New York, and I was like, bro,
We are a mess.
we are a mess.
Yeah, we're a mess, and our supermarkets are filled with poison.
Then October 7th happens. Propaganda vein, this pro-Hamas, we were texting before we came on here, like how fast things pivot. The rational understanding of a problem and how perverted it is from truth. Don't know how to fight this. This is a unique problem.
It's very unique, and it's very strange. It's very strange to see massive protests on the streets that are yelling out in support of the people that did that on October 7th. And there was a professor recently that said he was elated when that happened.
Yeah.
And he was just suspended, which is crazy that it's only that. But the fact that there's people that are so fucking detached from reality, and they have this very strange leftist Marxist philosophy that is so untenable with the reality of the world, and yet they're teaching kids this, and then they're talking about this openly in public forums, openly in social media, openly in protests. It's fucking strange. It's so strange that people don't understand. It's so dangerous. And for young people that admire those people, or that are being taught by those people and don't know any better when that person's in a position of power and influence because they're discussing these things in classrooms or discussing these things on social media, I just don't understand it. I'm so confused. I never thought things would deteriorate this rapidly.
Here's my problem with that. I mean, I completely understand what everything Joe Rogan is saying here. And it will kind of make you feel, that, hey, he's on my side. He's seeing things that I'm seeing. But then comes the episode where you had Douglas Murray and Dave Smith and a few other episodes, before, where you start feeling like, oh, he's not on my side anymore. He's kind of moving to the camp of conspiracy theories, and Israel is not a good guy. And, I don't know. So it makes you kind of think like, what is really his opinion? Maybe he changed since that episode, or maybe he's just kind of like Candace Owens and other, only way less, on steroids than them, just chameleon kind of changing his ways and views towards what's trendy right now. And now a lot of young Americans are believing this stuff. So he's going to, go with that trend. I don't think so. I think what made Joe Rogan special and unique was that he was genuinely just that he was just a dude trying to have a conversation with other dudes. And he invited very interesting people, and he is very good at also, interviewing people and also adding his own insight about it. But yeah, the last few episodes just was weird because it was clear cut there who was standing on the right side and who was standing on the wrong side, in my opinion, at least. Douglas Murray was representing the Western civilization in terms of defending Israel, defending America, defending Europe from very radical Muslim jihadists, that want to come and destroy it completely. And Dave Smith is a jihadist apologist. undoubtedly, you can see it in so many videos of him. He tries to parachute out of it, not just a comedian, but he's all the time just bashing the West and America and justifying very evil acts that are happening under Islam and under, many other very bad places around the world. Now, it could have been that Joe was just being annoyed by Douglas because Douglas kind of challenged him from the beginning. And added to that, he was having his bromance was more important than actually his values. When you come on a podcast like Joe Rogan and you're putting yourself out there, you're expected to stand behind your values because the crowd that admires you is going to be very, very much listening to what you say. And even though if you have a good friend there who's a comedian like you, and right now he's being completely, bashed right, left, and center by Douglas Murray, who's calling him out for his nonsense, but you still choose to side with your brother because it's bromance. I kind of understand it as a guy because, I have friends of mine that I always stand with them and then I'll give them cow poop, in closed doors that I tell them, listen, you just made a fool out of yourself, but because I was out there, I didn't want to embarrass you. So could have been that this what happened. But I don't know. It just felt to me like he was really trying to kind of counter Douglas Murray way more than he was trying to counter Dave Smith there. That seems to be way more detached than reality.